Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 54 units of real estate. So today I want to talk about why I'm not going to buy any more real estate. And it's not because the market's doing bad. It's not because the market's doing good. It's just because I feel like I hit my enough number for now. So for me, I just came back from Vietnam, the motherland. Never been to Vietnam, first time. And why I like to travel is because it reminds me of like how little money you need to live. Albeit Vietnam is way cheaper than Los Angeles, California. It just was very eye-opening for me to realize that I don't need as much as I thought I did. And I think I was just buying a lot of real estate, building wealth, because I was coming from a place of lack, thought I needed more. And you know, if you listen to a lot of social media, like I was, during bigger pocket time, the mindset is always to like buy a lot, scale, and you know, just own a lot of units. Like it's impressive to be like, I bought 100 units in 1 year, stuff like that, right? That's the mantra I had. And for some reason I thought I had a gun in my head and someone was telling me that I need to get 100 units. But as I owned real estate for a long period of time, I realized that, you know, I have enough, probably. And at this point, me buying more real estate, it's actually going to lower my quality of life, not improve my quality of life. And I went into real estate investing after I got laid off from my pharmacist job because I wanted additional streams of income. You know, I got bit by the FIRE movement bug, wanted to retire early. And I think on my current path and trajectory, I'm pretty much guaranteed to retire between 40 to 45, which is 5 to 10 years from now, depending on what I want to do. So, you know, for me, I thought I was really into real estate, and that's why I bought 2 more properties this year. I bought my 2 in Huntsville, Alabama. Shout out to my 2 school members who, you know, they got a property each in Huntsville, Alabama, their first deal as well, following my property manager, my realtor, my same strategy. So congratulations for taking action if you're watching. But I bought these 2 deals thinking I wanted more, but after I bought these 2 deals, I just felt exactly the same. I'm not like happier. My net worth increased, which is great. The cash flow isn't like significant, like I call them break-even properties. So it kind of like scratched that itch that I had, but I don't need to scratch it anymore. So, you know, for me, at this point, if I were to buy more real estate, I think it would actually lower my quality of life because, you know, it requires effort and work to find a deal, to find financing and deal with lenders. Lenders are very stressful. I'm doing cash out refinance and it's been taking them like 2-3 months just to do a simple cash out refinance with delays, and it's causing my other property to be pushed back because I'm going to pull the money out from that property to then pay for the other property, all cash. So that stress is like not improving my quality of life. And, you know, I bought these 2 deals. I don't regret buying these 2 deals because I know that I'm gonna start to sell my portfolio. So these 2 deals will make up for the ones that I'm gonna sell. So why I'm pausing is because I want to reassess my portfolio and then see which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to sell. And in order for me to do that, I've basically been tracking my expenses diligently for each property. How much income, what's my expense, what's my net cash flow, and then overall for my whole portfolio, I track my total, you know, for the month. Am I positive? Am I negative? Am I neutral? And it's just a simple Google Excel sheet with simple formulas. Nothing fancy. So, you know, for me, it's become clear that my 20 unit is probably the one I need to sell because it has CapEx issues. It's a C-class apartment. So when you have a C-class apartment that's built in the 1960s, you're gonna have a lot of HVAC issues, plumbing issues, electrical issues. So the value was made when I fixed it up and raised the rents. But at this point, it's not its best use. So it's becoming very clear to me that I need to sell that property. And then from there, I have many options. I could 1031 exchange it, or I just can pay Uncle Sam. I have to pay capital gains tax, long-term capital gains tax, depreciation recapture. I have to pay my prepayment penalty on my commercial loan. It's probably gonna be about 2 or 3% of the loan amount, which comes out to be about $3,000 to $6,000 roughly. And then if I use a realtor, then I have to pay the realtor's closing costs. So, you lose at least 15% of your money, which sucks, right? Obviously, if I 1031 exchange it, I roll the money over and over again. But my objective of this 20 unit when I sell it is to use it to build 2 ADUs on my property in Orange County, cash. And it's going to cost me about $400,000 to build these 2 ADUs. One's going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the backyard, detached. And then the garage is to be converted to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. And my current tenant's okay with it. Talk to them. I'm probably going to have to lower their rent slightly as a negotiation tactic, which I'm okay with. But once it's all built, and it's going to take a year from when I sign the contract, probably going to sign the contract mid-2026 to take it a little easier and not stress myself out. Once it's built, I can rent that 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $3,700, the 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $2,500. That's $6,200 a month of pure cash flow because I'm paying cash, and I'm all in for $400,000. So if you can't do the math, that's a 16 to 18% cash on cash return with no debt. So if the tenant leaves, I'm not stressed because there's no mortgage on the ADUs. So in my mind, yes, it sucks when I sell. I probably have to pay 100 to 150K of taxes and fees. But I can increase my cash flow from at best $2,000 a month for my 20 unit to about $6,000 a month-ish once I have the ADUs. And the property is upgraded and the tenant class is better. And keep in mind, my 20 unit, the best, each unit rents for about $500 to $550 per door, times that by 20, so the most I can do is $10K. But I typically hover at 85 to 90% occupancy. So I'm typically averaging $8,500 to $9,000 in terms of the gross rents. And then with my 2 ADUs, it's almost $6,000 or $6,200 in rent. So, but it's more pure cash flow. So I'm trying to research if it's possible. This would be the most ideal situation. If I could 1031 exchange my 20 unit into building the ADUs. Like if that's possible, that'd be cool. But I'm not banking on it. And like I said, I don't mind paying Uncle Sam. That's the price of freedom. And I think that's a better portfolio move where I'm having fewer units, higher quality tenants, and more cash flow. So it's a natural progression as a real estate investor where you're trimming your portfolio and then transitioning it to newer assets. That's why a lot of people start off in apartments. They buy C-class. I've been talking and networking with Cody Davis, and he owns C-class apartments as well, and he's starting to 1031 exchange his C-class apartments into A-class apartments. So he's going from like a 15-unit or C-class apartment to maybe a 7-unit 5-year-old building that's A-class, and it's less headache and more rents potentially and more cash flow. So that's the same exact move I'm doing as well. So that's why I get why a lot of syndicators in C-class, they don't keep them long term, because you get shot with CapEx and maintenance. Versus if you go to A-class, you have better tenants, less repairs, less maintenance, less headache, and less toilets to deal with, right? Of course, I'd rather go from 20 toilets down to 2, and I'm gonna have higher tenants and just as much rents. So that's one move that I'm gonna need to take. And if I make that move, I'm gonna go down from 54 down to 34 units, but then I'm building 2 ADUs, so I'm going to 36 units, right? So yes, I'll go down in unit count, but my cash flow will be a lot better and it'll be a lot easier to manage portfolio. The next move I need to do is I probably need to pay off my primary residence, right? So for me, I was thinking of doing a refinance to a 20-year term. Hopefully I can get a 5% interest rate at a 20-year term. And what's beautiful, if I refinance to a 20-year term, 5% interest rate down from 6.5% interest to 30-year amortized, the monthly payment's the same, right? My monthly payment's to be about $5,500 a month. But what's beautiful is that with a 20-year term, I have more principal pay down. So with the 30-year term, my principal pay down is $800 a month. But if I'm at a 20-year term, it doubles to almost $1,600 So as a result, I can pay it off a lot faster, and it's the same payment. And another move I need to do probably is, which is why I bought the 2 in Huntsville, is I'm probably gonna sell the first property I bought in the Bay Area in Livermore, California, and use that money, pay Uncle Sam, once again, long-term capital gains tax, depreciation recapture, and then use that equity to pay off my primary residence to save me $5,500 a month. So just by doing these 2 moves, I lower my expense by, let's just call it $6,000 a month, and I increase my cash flow by $6,000 a month. So I'll be in a lot stronger of a position, like moving forward. So at that point, I'd be at roughly 35 units, but I would have my primary paid off, which is, peace of mind, freedom. I would have my ADUs paid off, which is nice and cash flowing. And then, the rest of my portfolio is pretty self-sufficient at that point. So those are probably the moves I'm gonna make. So I'm actually at the reverse. I'm not gonna be buying, I'm gonna be selling, most likely, to reallocate my chips to make it better. And this is kind of a natural progression as a real estate investor. You gotta take some chips off the table, you gotta trim the dead roses in order for the rose bush to grow overall. And then once I'm in a stronger financial position with my real estate portfolio that's more sturdy, strong foundation, not a house of cards, then I can look, if I want to buy my real estate at that time. Like I'm not in a rush. I know when I'm ready to buy real estate, I can always find a deal, regardless if it's a buyer's market, seller's market, stagnant market, low interest rates, high interest rates. I've bought real estate in all conditions, right? I bought real estate when it's during COVID, when it was a seller's market, when interest rates were low. I bought real estate when interest rates were high. Like to me, when you're ready to buy, you're ready to buy. There's nothing else about it. There's no need to time the market. If you are ready yourself, then you're ready to buy. So, that's probably the moves I'm gonna do. And, once again, I'm trying to reassess like how much I actually need to live my life. Obviously if I lived in Vietnam, or if I just had my current, let's just call it 35 units paid off and was, let's just say, cash flowing collectively 10 to 12K a month between everything. Like you only need like $2,000-3,000 to live in like Vietnam and live like a king in Vietnam, with like a nice hotel near the beach with breakfast included, and you can walk and get like $20 massages, and food's only like $1 or $2, and like you just can have a great coffee. So like you don't need much to live, but kids are in the horizon. Let's just call it the next 3 to 4 years. And they can be as expensive as you want them to be, but they can also be as affordable as you want them to be. Activities are expensive for kids. Private school is expensive, but don't plan on doing private school. We bought in an area with a decent school district, so I'm not worried about that. And activities, some are expensive, but some can be free too, right? And in terms of food, if you eat out, obviously it's more expensive. You eat in, it can be a little more affordable. But my parents didn't have much growing up, so we didn't really need much growing up as a kid. And my wife and I are pretty minimalist, so we hope to kind of make our kids a little bit more minimal as well. So, maybe kids aren't expensive as we think. Yes, there's daycare. Yes, if your kid has health issues, it can be expensive. Hopefully my kid doesn't have health issues in the future. But yeah, those are kind of the big expenses. And, for me, if it makes sense, I don't mind retiring. And by me retiring, I mean I'm just not working full time. Maybe I'll be part-time. Maybe I only do contract jobs. Maybe my YouTube blows up and I just do YouTube full time, right? At my pace, my leisure. Like Mike Zuber, he just spends a couple hours a day and made a pretty good business out of that, right? Maybe I can get there one day as well. So, I can't tell what's the post-Vietnam vacation, but I've kind of slowed down, and I think I needed it because I was going too fast. I'm geared towards speed. I'm geared towards taking action. So for me, I'm the reverse, where I need moments to slow down and to reassess everything. Because I don't need as much as we want. Like we don't plan on upgrading our house. Like, I was talking to my wife about it. Like, we choose to live in LA, which is more expensive, but the cost of living in somewhere expensive like LA is you're not going to get as big of a house. But we're okay with our current house, and if we're not okay with our current house, then we'd move to a cheaper area to get a bigger house. But from my experience, the more house you have, the more stuff you buy to fill up that house. So we're pretty happy with our 1,600 square foot townhome, and it's enough, and it's not gonna make sure that I don't buy too much stuff and junk that I don't need. And we just like the community. There's a gym, there's a pool, it's walkable, it's close to a lot of Asian food. Can't complain, right? It's safe, it's gated. So like, what else do we need? Like, once the mortgage is paid off, between the HOA, the property tax, the insurance, the utilities, we're probably gonna pay $2,000 a month. And what's kind of crazy is that, like, let's say if I'm living in Vietnam for like 2-3 months at a time, I just can rent out my house on Airbnb for 2-3 months. And that money is enough to basically cover my vacation probably. It's probably enough to cover my vacation and to cover my property tax and insurance. Maybe I can get like $3,000 to $4,000 a month, and that's enough to cover my house plus maybe my vacation. So like, we don't need that much. And like Christine and I, like, we don't need lavish things. Like we do have it. I've experienced it, right? Like, I have a nice watch, I have a nice car, nice clothes, and it doesn't make us that much happier. What makes us the most happy is having freedom and living life on our terms, and doing what we want when we want. And if the cost of that is having low expenses, then I'm all for it, right? Like, I don't care for things. Obviously, if I'm retired, I want to have a maid. That's been non-negotiable, to clean my house every 2 weeks. But that's not even that expensive. It's like maybe $500 a month at most. And another thing that I'm kind of realizing too is, like, in Vietnam, like, we were literally living off of, like, between us two, like, the hotel would be like $30 a night. And then for like food, assuming you don't go fancy, you can live off like $6 a day for 2 people. And that's getting coffee, eating out for lunch and dinner. If you had a high-end meal, like I ate this like really high-end truffle pasta place in Vietnam, that same meal would have cost like $100 for the truffle pasta, but it's only $10 in Vietnam, and it tasted just as good. And it's only $10. So like, it's making me realize that, like, wow, like maybe when I'm retired, I just live maybe like 3 months in Vietnam. I would live in Vietnam during the cooler months, so that'd be December, January, February are probably the ideal times. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's transition, and not too rainy. And I can lower my costs during that period, and then when it gets hot there, just move back to the US, right? And maybe take my kids out of school and homeschool them for a few months, and teach them some real world experience, right? I never understood why parents did that when I was growing up. I remember kids would get pulled out of school, but my parents didn't have the luxury because, we didn't have money to do this. My parents just had to work. But yeah, it's nice to be able to pull your kid out of school, and you can teach them stuff. Like, I plan on teaching my kids myself because I'm just very educational. That's why I do YouTube. But yeah, I hope to be able to teach my kid real life experience and how to spend money and be intentional. So yeah, I think I got a lot of clarity this past year, ups and downs of wanting more and realizing I don't need enough, I have enough. So yeah, I think my sweet spot right now for my portfolio is probably going to be around, so I'm going to sell my 20 units and go down to from 54 to 34, build 2 ADUs, go to 36, sell 1 to pay up my primary. So about 35 units is probably going to be my sweet spot. And then once I have that portfolio, at that point I can determine if I want to continue to sell some to pay off some or buy some. At that point I could reassess. But unless my YouTube business takes off like crazy and I become really big, like Anton Davis, who was critiquing my video, and making millions a year, then at that point, if I was making millions a year, what I would do is I'd buy homes in Huntsville cash, or I'd buy more properties in Orange County with big lots, and self-fund the ADU in the backyard and self-fund the ADU garage conversion and just keep on doing that, right? Like I would just scale that, assuming I had like infinite income. But as is with my W-2, that's probably going to be my portfolio, right? So we'll see. So anyways, just wanted to do a rant about, why I'm not buying real estate. Once again, it's not because it's a bad market. It's just because I feel like I hit my enough, and I want to own the least amount of units to give me my lifestyle that I want, which is low stress and freedom. Because if I'm like wealthy from real estate, but I'm a slave to my real estate portfolio, like you're a slave to something else. That's not worth it either. So, I want the least amount of units to give me the lifestyle that I want, right? And maybe 35 units might be it, right? If I sell one of my other single family homes, I could probably pay off my 26 unit, own it free and clear, and then pay off one of my properties in Huntsville. And I think that will be it. So I think around like the 30s, mid to low 30s, would be my sweet spot for owning the least amount of units to have the lifestyle that I want to be able to retire. And like I said, like maybe I can take easier jobs. Maybe my YouTube makes me 6 figures one day, and that's enough for me, to be honest, because I enjoy doing it. But yeah, that's my enough. So, for me, I've met a lot of people who they keep on going, they keep on grinding despite owning more real estate than me. And they just don't seem happy. They don't seem like they have clarity. They just feel like they're just scaling to mass something up because they're a slave to that portfolio. Yes, your net worth's gonna be higher. Yes, you're gonna hedge against inflation, but at what cost, right? Like I'll tell you at this point, whether my net worth is 8 million, 9 million, 10 million, 11 million, my quality of life will not change. The more real estate that I own at this point, maybe in the beginning, a few rentals will improve my quality of life, but ultimately, I saw people who own more than me, and like I said, I don't want to be a slave to my real estate portfolio either. So anyways, hopefully you found value. If you want to get coaching, you want mentorship, you want a course, I just dropped the price of my course, or you want to join a school community on a free trial, it's $30 a day after that. Check out my link tree. If you want to save on your insurance policy using Steadily, click on my link as well. If you want to send me an email, also on the link tree. Otherwise, please like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.